Welcome to the virtual candidate forum for the California State Assembly District 3 race. There are 80 state assembly districts total. Assembly District 3 covers all of Glenn, Sutter, Tehama, and Yuba counties, nearly half of Colusa, and most of Butte, for a population of 469,000 at the last census. No doubt that will change after this current census. State Assembly members make $110,459 per year. For this race, there are two candidates vying for this spot, Mr. James Gallagher and Mr. James Henson. The candidates will have 2 minutes for their opening statement, 1 minute to respond to questions, and 2 minutes for their closing statement. We've already made sure that you can see our leak timekeeper. That's great. He'll hold up the signs with your remaining time. Please abide by the time limitations. I will let you finish a sentence. I will not cut you off mid-sentence unless it seems like you're just going on and on, or you have not seen our stop sign, which has happened. So the order of opening has been randomly chosen. Mr. Henson will go first, followed by Mr. Gallagher. Mr. Henson, you may begin your 2-minute opening statement.
Thank you, and thank you for all those that are watching. I would like to pay my, I would like to recognize the fact that President Trump and his wife and others are in the hospital right now, and that I wish them well, because they have been infected by the COVID virus. And I do wish that everything turns out better for them. For me, I'm a person that was that's an author that has been a blue collar worker. I graduated from Chico State in 2002, and I have lived in this community in Butte County for a very long time. I was the victim of the 2018 Paradise Camp Fire and lost my home and had to relocate to Berry Creek and then relocate to Chico. I know the experiences that people have had trying to find shelter, trying to find their way back to where they were before, the stability and the unaffordability of housing, the unaffordability of just being able to survive in this area. I would like to make the changes that need to occur to bring about the chances for people to have a better life. I worry about those that the unemployment that has risen. I worry about education, and I worry about the fact that we are in a long-term pandemic, and we need to do something about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gallagher.
Well, good evening, and thank you to the League of Women Voters for putting on this forum. Always appreciate these forums. I think they're great for the public to understand where candidates are coming from. I also want to join Jim in my thoughts and prayers for our president and for all those who've been impacted by this COVID-19 virus. So my name's James Gallagher. I am your current assemblyman representing the 3rd Assembly District. And we've been through a whole lot together. This is my 3rd term serving you in the Assembly. We've been through the Oroville Dam crisis. We've been through the Camp Fire. And what I have just loved about representing this district is the way that we all come together to face these challenges. And I'm proud of the record that I've had serving you. We came together in the aftermath of the Oroville crisis, and we passed landmark dam safety legislation that I'm very proud of. That's not only going to make sure that Oroville is safe long-term, but that dams throughout the state are safe long-term. In the aftermath of the Camp Fire, and as Jim went through that himself, the devastation that we saw there, we've been working together to recover the ridge and the people that have been so impacted by that. In this term, I was able to pass through housing legislation that will fast track housing in Butte County and many other cities in the Sacramento Valley. Proud of that work. Even though I am in the minority down in Sacramento, I've been able to work across party lines to accomplish these things. And so that's, I will continue to fight for our people. I always fight for our values and our interests. I'll always stand up for those things. And I'm proud of the work that we do together, and will continue to bring about successes for the 3rd District. Thank you.
Thank you. And just a quick Zoom note, if the candidates are comfortable muting themselves while they are not speaking, you can tap the space bar to temporarily unmute yourself, and that's just so you're not picked up causing sound while the other person is speaking, and then our recording doesn't flip back and forth between the two of you. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll start with our first question, and the person answering first will be Mr. Gallagher. Question 1, as the successful candidate, so if you are the successful candidate, what would be your top 3 priorities? And Mr. Gallagher, you may begin your 1-minute answer.
My number 1 priority, I don't even have to think about it, forestry management. We have made some progress on this front in these last 2 years, but it's not enough. We need a comprehensive plan for getting into our forest, removing the vegetation, doing the thinning, the prescribed burns that we need to do to ensure the safety of our communities. We can no longer allow these type of things to happen. And the best thing that we can do, the number 1 thing we can do to prevent wildfires that devastate our communities, is by getting this getting this vegetation out of our forests. Also continue to work on housing. We've made some great progress there. Affordable housing projects that are going up right now. I want to continue to work on that. And also on homelessness. We had some success in the legislature this year passing legislation. I want to continue to work with all stakeholders to help people get out of homelessness and into a productive life.
Thank you. Mr. Henson, top 3 priorities.
My top 3 priorities are climate change, the changing of our climate, recognizing that. The second would be getting a universal single payer or Medicare for all at the California level. And the third is education. Education in our district is at a very low standard. In fact, what I noticed is that 46% of Hispanics in Assembly District 3 do not graduate from high school at all. And this is a concern of mine that I would like to bring about interest, say like bring more help, out of school help to get people to know more about the work that they need to do to become people that are workers in our community. With Medicare for all, I see that the debt bankruptcy is so high, medical bankruptcy is so high that if we can reduce the medical bankruptcy, we can actually afford, doctors and hospitals will be able to actually afford that. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Question 2. If you are the elected official of Assembly District 3, you represent the citizens of that district. How do you intend to reach out to your constituents, be accessible, and listen to their concerns? And we'll start with Mr. Henson.
Well, it is a concern during this pandemic as to how to reach out to people. I think we've been discussing that as far as Zoom and other major technical areas. If there are chances, it would be nice to have town hall meetings. It would be nice to have one-on-one sessions with roundtables of major constituents in communities that are movers and shakers. And it would be nice to be able to get connected to those people that are disenfranchised. So to work on those levels, if nobody has a computer or if nobody has those things, they're really going to need to have a town hall meeting that works with masks and 6 feet separation to do that.
Thank you. Mr. Gallagher.
Well, I always try to ensure, and it's a very high priority in my office, to be transparent and accessible. And I think during these times, you know, obviously we have used technology as much as possible to reach out to people and also to make it available for them to reach out to me. Social media has been a big medium for that. Facebook, Twitter. I never censor anyone on my Facebook, so comments are always welcome, you know, whether they're positive or critical, you know, and I will respond, and you often see me responding through those vehicles. We certainly use email and other vehicles as well. I think Jim's right. You know, we do need to continue to have accessibility for those who may not have that technology, may not have a computer. We've done town halls. I will continue to try and do those as safely as we can to ensure that people have the opportunity to address me. My staff stands ready to help people with any issue, and we've certainly helped a lot with EDD, for instance, and will continue to do so.
Thank you. Next question. It's been 23 months since the Camp Fire ravaged parts of Assembly District 3. Many victims are still experiencing extreme social and financial hardship. Has the state offered sufficient assistance, or should it be doing more? And we will start with Mr. Gallagher.
So I think there's been a lot of things that have been done. First of all, we secured millions of dollars in relief, both at the state and federal level, working with Congressman LaMalfa to ensure the recovery of our infrastructure, to provide FEMA relief, instant relief that people needed, to help them sustain themselves, to bring on the housing. We've done, the debris removal program moved at record pace on the ridge. So I think that was a success. What I've really been working on is, look, it's a continuing process, and we need caseworkers. One thing I'm proud of is a public-private partnership that I helped engineer with North Valley Community Foundation, Cal Volunteers out of the governor's office, and AmeriCorps to provide more caseworkers to help people who are still struggling in the aftermath of this. And we need to continue to work with our nonprofits and all the stakeholders to help ensure that people have the resources they need to recover.
Thank you. Mr. Henson.
Well, being a survivor of the Camp Fire, it is a full-time job. A full-time job trying to find the distribution centers, the help that's needed, the caseworkers that will help. As we've heard, there was a limited amount of caseworkers. There's a limited amount of movement within the area of getting people where their needs are met. You find that most of the help came from individuals themselves instead of the government, but FEMA was a big help to me and my family. And I think that in order to move forward, we really, really need to get the people that are still disenfranchised and still living in tents and still living in shelters, to get them back on their feet. So whatever we can do, we need to do right away.
Thank you. Next question. The pandemic has had a severe impact on the state budget and expenses. What should the state be doing to ensure a firmer financial footing in the next 12 to 16 months? And we'll start with Mr. Henson.
Well, granted that this is the time where we have to recognize that it's people above profit, and that we have to recognize that the most important thing is to help one another out. Yes, our financial problems are a major problem to this area, but we have always overcome on that level. What we really need to do is take care of our people first. And I know that with the bill that was SB 915, it was a bill to prevent evictions for people that were living in trailer parks. It's these sort of things that we know we need to do, and we know that it may cost us in the beginning, but in the long run, we will always come back and we will be a better state, because we are fifth, are we not, as a nation?
Thank you. Mr. Gallagher.
Sorry, I had to unmute myself there. This is a really important question, because let's just paint the picture here. We were looking at just these couple months ago, a $45 billion deficit in this next fiscal year. It's probably going to be even greater than that. And with that deficit means it's going to be deficits at the county levels as well. And there'll be less money for things like public safety and public health, and in order to take care of people through this crisis. So this has been one of my big frustrations with how this pandemic has been handled by the governor and by the current administration, is you do have to get businesses back opened again. That's where your revenue is coming from. That's where the tax revenue is coming from property tax, from sales tax, and we can do this safely. And it's been a frustration to see that some businesses are labeled essential, usually the big businesses, by the way, and the small businesses have been labeled non-essential. They've been closed down, shut down. That's going to have a huge economic impact on our ability to care for people through this pandemic. We need to reverse course on that and do it safely.
Thank you. Next question. The current political climate is contentious at all levels of government, local, state, and national. As a state leader, how do you intend to heal this divide and restore your constituents' faith in representative government? And we'll begin with Mr. Gallagher.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all can attest to the way that things have gotten, maybe especially at the national level. The divisiveness is really not helpful. We need to be looking at, how do we move forward positively as a country, as a common people, and how do we solve the problems that we face? And I think too often, and it happens a lot in Sacramento, too often it is painted as, hey, whether something's a Republican idea or a Democratic idea, there's good ideas and there's bad ideas, and the data shows it and the policy shows it. And so I really want to focus on, hey, how do we come together? I think that's what I have done as an assemblyman for this area, is I've worked with stakeholders in the private and the public sector to solve problems, from homelessness to the opioid crisis, to fighting to ensure that we can open our schools and businesses, and get our community back to a vibrant situation through COVID-19. All of those things are going to take us working together.
Thank you. Mr. Henson.
Could you repeat the question again?
The current political climate is contentious at all levels of government, local, state, and national. As a state leader, how do you intend to heal this divide and restore your constituents' faith in representative government?
When I came to Chico, I thought that the idea was that we fought one another to try to get the best we needed. Like it was a dog-eat-dog world. But the reality is that we all want the same common things: good schools, security, a family life that is comfortable. And I think that's the same thing with politicians themselves, is that we're all working to represent those kind of morals and those kind of things that can help our constituents get a better life. So if when we're working together, we must push aside our own political views and come together with the one common idea is how do we help one another grow and become a better person or a better place.
Thank you. Next question. The poverty level in California is one of the highest in the nation. Low-income families are facing unprecedented levels of food insecurity. Do you support expanding access to California's Calfresh program? And we'll start with Mr. Henson.
Not only is California having high poverty levels, but in District 3, the poverty levels are at 18 to 20% or even higher. In fact, in Colusa County, what I found was interesting was that children in deep poverty was at 21%, while the rest of the adults in poverty in Colusa were at 18%. This is something that we do need to address, and what we need to address is to extend the amount of funding for or subsidies for these families and for those that are in poverty in order to get them to get their feet back up and working again.
Thank you. Mr. Gallagher.
Yeah, I think to answer that question, we have to get at why are we the highest poverty? Why does our state have the highest poverty in the nation? And the number one reason is because we have the highest costs in the nation. We have the highest housing costs. Right now, it takes $300,000 just to build an affordable apartment unit here in California. That came out. Median housing price is somewhere around $600,000. A lot of these things are just way out of reach for people. We pay the highest electricity costs, mostly because of our climate policies that require renewable power, even though we already have 80% zero emission power in this state. And they want to do even more. The governor wants to push for even more on that. The problem is our costs are so high, and it makes it very hard for people. And we need jobs. And there's a lot of policies that have taken away jobs like in the timber industry, in the manufacturing industry, and they're because of government policies. And these are things I want to change so that we can lower the cost for people and provide more jobs and opportunities for people in this district and throughout California.
Thank you. Next question, and both of you may have touched on this a little bit already in your opening statements, but here's the question. Climate scientists believe that climate change has intensified California's wildfires. What steps do you propose the state should take to reduce the occurrence of these fires and their destructive capabilities and their destruction? And we'll begin with Mr. Gallagher.
Yeah, the number one thing that we can do as a climate policy is better forestry management. The Legislative Analyst's Office has already reviewed this many times over, and our forestry management policies actually reduce more carbon per dollar spent than many of the other things that we've done, including solar subsidies, including the RPS standard, renewable portfolio standard that we have on energy. It's a much lower cost, and it gets you a better bang for your buck on reducing carbon. These wildfires are happening because we have a huge fuel load in our forests. That's the number one fundamental issue. Climate change has definitely made our fire season longer. We've had drier conditions, but the fundamental issue is fuel. And we need to no longer have a tolerance for fuel deniers who want to ignore that fundamental problem. We need to get into our forests. We can also create jobs in biomass and in removing this vegetation and doing that. And the new technologies out there on biomass can actually sequester carbon. All of these things are the things that we haven't done in California on climate policy that we really need to start doing. It's smarter policy, and it helps make our communities safer.
Thank you. Mr. Henson.
Well, the state only has 3% of the land, whereas the rest of it is either private or is federal. I agree that we need to have biomass plants, and I also agree that we need to be careful about how much vegetation we take out of the forest, because we still have to have the forest growth, and the forest needs the vitamins. In Germany, they tried to do this where they cleaned out, and it was so costly to clean out the forests of all the material, but it also started killing off all the trees that were in there too, because they didn't have the vitamins to grow in. I think we need to take a sharper look at how we manage our forests, but how the federal government actually manages the forest too, because they are more in charge of it than we are at making sure that there is a thinning out and that there is growth that allows us all to grow. Thanks.
Thank you. This next question will be our final question before the closing statements. Do you believe we need to improve police and community relations in Assembly District 3? And if so, what immediate steps need to be taken? We will begin with Mr. Henson.
Now, there's a lot of talk about defunding the police department, and I am not in favor of that. What I'm in favor of is that the police work actually together. One of the things that I think is that when there's a call that comes into 911, the emergency, that is an opportunity to decide then and there where the help needs to come to that location, instead of just sending police, ambulance, and also firefighters. The important thing, I think, is that when we talk about the police, I think we talk about the law enforcement and keeping peace, not the enforcement part that makes us all worry about what will happen when the police arrive. So it's important, I think, to have a decision made early on who goes out to the call and how that call will be help the person. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gallagher.
Yeah, I fully support community policing, and we have some great examples of that throughout the 3rd District of our local law enforcement that really is working with the community, that's working with stakeholders, that has a very much community-minded, policy when they go out and they're policing our communities. We've seen that relationship also in dealing with the homeless community here in Chico, where there's a special task force within Chico's police department that's helping get those people to the resources that they need. So, I mean, these are the things that I think we really need to work on together as a community. I have supported policies in the legislature that I think help support that community policing mentality that bring people together. I do not support radical policies like the defund police movement that is going around the nation right now, like bills that were in the legislature this year that would have, really handcuffed our police officers and being able to keep us safe and put them in jeopardy. I will not support those policies and will continue to fight against them.
Thank you both for your thoughtful answers. It's now time for your 2-minute closing statements, and we will begin with Mr. Gallagher. You may now begin your 2-minute closing statement.
Well, thank you again for hosting this forum. Again, I think these are great opportunities for the voters to really hear from all the candidates, and what their ideas are, what their vision is, the things that they have worked on. For my part, I feel like I have been a fighter for this district in my 3 terms, and I would be honored to have your trust again for a 4th term in representing this district. I think what you can count on for me is to continue to be a strong voice for our region, for greater forestry management. We talked about that a lot tonight. That's the fundamental issue that is fueling these wildfires that have devastated our communities. I want to work on a comprehensive plan, statewide plan, to really get on top of this issue. I want to work on CTE. We talked a little bit about education, didn't get real in the weeds on it, but we need more career technical education that trains our young people in trades, in mechanical and other fundamental things that can help them go out and get a job right now today, that pays well and that can help them sustain themselves and their families. We need to remove the regulatory barriers. There are too many, and they are costly. We talked about that tonight. The high cost of living in California is the fundamental thing that is causing poverty. And we need to remove those barriers and focus in on how do we provide affordable. And the biggest way we do that is we remove, for instance, in housing, my bill, AB 430, removes CEQA as a barrier. That is a huge, costly barrier. When we've already planned for growth in areas, we should allow those houses to be built, and then they can be built at a lower cost. We should, continue to fight, against radical policies coming out of Sacramento that are shuttering our businesses, and that leads to less revenue that's available for local programming. So I'm going to continue to work and fight for this district, and I would appreciate your support once again. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Henson, your 2-minute closing statement.
Now, usually the endorsement in the newspapers goes to the incumbent. The incumbent, because they have the experience that they've been there before, and they see that as the main reason to endorse them once again. But when you take a look at the scores of the watchdogs within education, human rights, health access, environmental justice, and immigration rights, LGBT rights, voting rights, you see that most of these rights, the percentage that is that of votes that my incumbent has given is about an F.
Mr. Henson, I'll remind you, no personalized attacks, please.
Thank you. So the important thing is that when you're looking for somebody to be your representative, you're looking for the experience that they have and the scores that they have been graded upon. So although I have not been in office, I can guarantee you that I would be one that would be working in all these levels and rising the grade level up to a much more B average or A average. Thank you.
Thank you both for participating in our virtual candidate forum. Thank you to our attendees for watching. Thank you to all the people that will watch once this link is posted. I will leave you with a few closing thoughts. Please go to votersedge.org for more information about the candidates in your local races, including the races like school districts, city councils, other districts. Votersedge.org, you can enter your zip code or your exact address to pull up your ballot. You can also get information on measures, local measures, and state propositions. I would encourage everyone to vote. Please vote. Please vote early if you can. And again, thank you to everyone for attending. Thank you to our candidates, and good night.